Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Mary-Ann Street.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't consider myself to be a very old person, but I must say I'm beset with a feeling of deja vu as I get up to speak to this regulatory reform bill and regulatory reform repeals bill. And I feel the need to reflect a little bit on history, not simply because it was this day in 1940 when Michael Joseph Savage died in office, or this day in 1984 when the Trades Hall in Wellington was bombed and killed Ernie Abbott. And it's not for those reasons, although they are worth getting on the Hansard, but it's because when I first came into Parliament, and I was as new to this House as Maggie Barry opposite and her colleagues are now, I was on the Commerce Select Committee, and the Minister of Commerce was Leanne Dalzell, and she engaged in the Quality Regulation Review. She was also Minister for Small Business, and she engaged in a very comprehensive regulation review process, which I got to know about fairly intimately, and being on the Commerce Select Committee. And it was an excellent process and really engaged with the business community in a way they hadn't been engaged with for a long time, to see what kind of regulation could be disposed of and dispensed with, and what was useful for business in order for them to function adequately and safely in a suitably regulated environment. And I just want to pay a tribute to Leanne Dalzell for that work, Mr. Speaker, and to say that although it has taken this government nearly it's taken them 3 and a bit years to get to the point of bringing this omnibus bill forward, for all their hype and bluster about being anti-red tape, really the credit for this initiative lies back with Leanne Dalzell. However, in the form that this bill now appears in front of the House, Mr. Speaker, it's not so much a regulatory reform bill as an omnibus legislation repeal bill, because largely what it does is to repeal a whole lot of acts. And yes, some of them should go, and as we heard from the New Zealand First speaker earlier, things like District Railways Purchasing Act of 1885 should probably have gone some time ago. But one of them that also takes my attention here is the Economic Stabilisation Act, Repeal Act of 1987. Now, a bit of history again. I remember the Labour government in 1987 repealing the Economic Stabilisation Act, which, and here is a little contemporary irony, was the act that was brought in 1951 to deal with the waterfront lockout. And it was in that period, and also prior to that, a version of it for the Second World War. The Economic Stabilisation Act gave government huge powers, which we have only seen since in the extraordinary legislation around Christchurch. So there is a little bit of history there, going back to the Second World War and later events in 1951, when the waterfront workers were being punished and being forbidden to organise. And lo and behold, here we are, 2012, and there is a bit of a port dispute on in Auckland, in case the members opposite hadn't noticed. However, history is a good teacher, or ought to be. And this legislation, while it cannot do the things which the National and ACT Party would have us believe that it would do, that is, rid business of a strangling red tape and bureaucracy, it is still nonetheless worth passing, 3 and a bit years late, but it is still worth passing to get some pieces of legislation that are no longer relevant off our statute books. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill.
Very good.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Member